Good evening and happy Saturday. I am so excited. Yes, I know. We took about a week off, but however, we had to take a week off because we needed to rest. And we can't do a show tomorrow because guess what? It's Super Bowl. So, whoever you're rooting for, I hope your team wins. Pittsburgh Steelers, we didn't make it. But hey, I still love my team. So, we are doing a super duper special show today. I know some people are out celebrating Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to you and your love bugs. But I have two special birthday shout outs. Happy 18th birthday to one of my super duper seniors. Has a ton of acceptance letters. Amazing scholar all around. Happy 18th birthday, Maria Hampton. Also, one of my rising juniors, actually, I think he's a junior, rising seniors. He'll be a senior next year. He is celebrating his sweet 16. So happy birthday, Devontae. So we're about to get started. I have a very, very special guest. But before, let me bring on my co-host. He's always here no matter what. Hey, Mr. Sinclair, how are you?
What's going on, sis? I am doing well. How's it going?
Well, I can't complain. I'm so excited that we did decide to do a show tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Please, and it's so funny. I have two screens up. In one, I'm doing the UNCF because they have a wonderful leadership summit going on. It's really good. This morning I was like listening to the Money Matters. And I was like, oh, wow, we're all aligned today. Everybody's talking about money.
Mm-hmm.
But we have an amazing guest today. She follows us. She's very sweet. She is a wealth of knowledge. So today, we have Miss Sparks with us today.
All right.
And she is doing a phenomenal, I can't say the word right. I know. Sometimes I get tongue twisted. Let me just say, she's doing a great job. She's doing a wonderful presentation that all of our parents can benefit from. And she was doing, like, even in the practice behind the scenes, I was so intrigued. I was like this on the screen, and I was like, okay, we can't do that during the live. I'm just gonna take myself out so people won't.
Yeah, you can't have your face all up in the camera.
Well, but it was so intriguing. I forgot. I was like, we're not even live yet. Why am I hitting this? But anywho, I want everybody that is watching, share, like, comment, because she is talking about something that we all need to know about. She will be talking about scholarships, financial aid. Please like, share, comment. If you have questions, she is the guru. So let me just bring her on because I love her so much. She always is in our comments and she is always telling us stuff. And she is so like a wealth of knowledge. I'm like, take me to school. Every time I talk to her, I'll be like this. So, welcome, Miss Sparks. How are you?
Hey.
I am
so
from
the city that's so nice they had to name it twice. New York. The New York City.
I love it.
I love it. Mr. Haywood.
Hey, how you doing, Miss Sparks? How you doing?
I'm doing very well. It was a beautiful day here in New York City. We had 60-degree weather, but it's like the calm before the storm. Right. Because when we wake up tomorrow morning, they say it's going to be about 25 degrees. So we're going to have a 30-degree drop in less than 12 hours.
Right.
Let's jump into this because this is so important to me as I know it is to you, and that's the student financial aid process.
Yes.
And not only am I going to talk about scholarships, I'm going to talk about the student financial aid process. It's more important for our families and students to understand the process and just knowing about scholarships, because once you understand the process, you will be able to utilize this information throughout your college career and actually even into post-baccalaureate work. So if you're going to grad school or med school or law school, and you're going to be seeking financial aid, the process is still the same. So for me, it is just so much more important that families understand this process, because when they are empowered, they can make really good, sound financial decisions as it relates to their students' overall student financial aid well-being. So with that, I'm going to go and the Miss Haywood and Miss Monique will stop me when they need to stop, but I'm going to jump right into it. So this
Yes.
is called How Do I Pay for College? Student Financial Aid Overview. Now this says Texas edition, but I want you to know the information I will be given, it doesn't matter if you live in the state of Texas or the state of New York or the state of California or the state of Minnesota or the state of Florida. Most of this information, if not all of it, is identical. It works identical no matter what state you reside in. So, really quick, we're going to talk about what is student financial aid. Who is eligible for student financial aid? Are you a dependent or independent student? That's very important to know when you're talking about student financial aid. What financial aid is available? Meaning, what kind of grants, loans, scholarships, institutional aid can I receive? What is the cost of attendance? And we're going to talk about what the cost of attendance is. What is the expected family contribution, or EFC? A very, very important three-letter term you'll need to know. And the various financial aid forms, because contrary to popular belief, depending on what college you're applying to, you may need to complete more than one financial aid form. So, what is meant by college? In the vernacular of student financial aid, college is described as any post-secondary education beyond high school for at least 2 years. So that could be the traditional 4-year college or university. It can mean community college. It can be a vocational or trade school. It can even mean a certificate program if you're taking a certificate program after you graduate high school. Next, what is student financial aid? Simply put, financial aid is money used to help students and their families pay for educational expenses beyond high school. That is the one sentence definition on what is student financial aid. And student financial aid comes in many forms. It could be in the form of grants that you don't have to pay back. It could be in the form of loans that you do have to pay back. It could be scholarships. It could be scholarships. It could be employment. It could be education tax credits. It could even be benefits from community or military service. And most families and students use a combination of some combination of all of these. There are currently two types of financial aid. There's need-based financial aid and non-need-based financial aid. So need-based financial aid is financial aid awarded based on the student's financial need. It could be in the form of grants, loans, employment, even some scholarships are need-based scholarships. Then there's non-need-based aid. Sometimes that's called merit aid, and that's financial aid awarded not based on the student's financial need. And it can also be in the form of grants, loans, employment, or merit-based scholarships. And the term financial need is determined by the results of the Fafsa, other financial aid forms, and the college or the school that the student plans to attend. So when we're talking about student financial aid, I want everybody to think about building a house. And when you build a house, you always start with the foundation of the house. So the foundation of the student financial aid house is federal aid. This is money that comes from the federal government. It comes from the federal government through the U.S. Department of Education, the Federal Student Aid Program. So in order to receive money from the federal government to attend college or post-secondary education, one would have to be a United States citizen or an eligible non-citizen. Currently, non-United States citizens are not eligible to receive federal aid. You have to be a high school graduate or have a GED, or enrolled and have completed an accredited homeschooling program, or be enrolled in something called an ATB program, which means an ability to benefit program. You must have a valid social security number, be enrolled in an accredited degree or certificate program, and just effective July 1st of 2021, male students between the ages of 18 to 25 will no longer be required to register for selective services in order to receive federal aid. So I want to say that again. If you are a male student and you are between the ages of 18 and 25, prior to July 1st of last year, you had to register for selective service in order to receive federal aid. That is no longer the case. So male students, you don't have to register for selective services in order to receive federal aid. I'm just going to go over this quickly for those students and families in the state of Texas. You can look for the state financial aid program for your home state to find out the requirements to receive state aid. So in the state of Texas, you also have to be a United States citizen, or an eligible non-citizen. You must be a legal resident of the state of Texas. So you must be a legal resident of the state of Texas. Just like here in New York, in order to receive New York state aid, you have to be a legal resident of the state of New York. Whatever state you live in, you would need to be a legal resident of that state. You must have a high school diploma or obtain your GED in the state of Texas or whatever your home state is. In the state of Texas, as with most states, you have to attend a college in that state. So for the state of Texas, in order to receive Texas state aid, most of the time, you have to attend a public Texas program. In other states like New York, you do not need to enroll solely in a public institution. You can go to a private college or a private academic program in our state as well. You must complete the FAFSA, or in the state of Texas, there's something called the TASFA. You have to have demonstrated need. And for the state of Texas, although it is no longer a requirement federally, please check to find out if it is a requirement in your state, if you are a male student, that you must register with selective service. And also, you cannot have been convicted of a felony or crime involving a controlled substance. So that's the eligibility to receive state aid in the state of Texas. And each state has its own requirements. So double check for your home state if you plan to attend college in your home state for the requirements to receive aid from your state. So next, something very important everybody has to know when they're filling out this financial aid forms and going through their academic career, post-secondary academic career, and they're receiving financial aid. You have to know what your dependency status is, because knowing what your dependency status is will determine whether you have to submit financial information from a parent or not. So for dependent students, these are students that must submit their parents' financial aid information. The student would have to be an unmarried undergraduate student with no dependents that are financially supported by their biological, adoptive, or step parent under the age of 24. So if you are a high school student, or if you are the parent of a high school student that will be graduating, or the parent of a student that is currently in college, and you are supporting them, and they're under the age of 24, you will need to submit your financial information as a parent. And just so you know, step parents are included in this equation. Independent students are individuals that are over the age of 24 if they are in graduate or professional school, if they are married, if they have children or other dependents that they support. if the student is a ward of the court, if the student has served in the United States Armed Services or a United States veteran, if the student is an emancipated minor or under legal guardianship. So what that means is if the student lives with someone other than their biological parents, so if they live with their grandparents or aunt or uncles or some other family members or someone else that is not in parental relation to them, they are an independent student. And this is really important because these students do not have to provide any parental financial information. So I'm going to kind of stop right here. So, Miss Monique, do you have any questions about what we've gone over thus far? Or Mr.
No,
Haywood?
I don't have any questions as of yet, but it is a wealth of information. I can say I have learned a lot as usual. Anytime I talk to you, I'm learning something. So, Mr. Hayward, did you have any questions?
I just wanted to mention that it's important, especially the dependent information. So maybe as we progress through, if you could, Ms. Vanessa, to just reiterate that, because I come in contact with a lot of students, and that's one of the topics that I think we cannot over represent and overexpose students to, because they definitely need to understand, especially due to certain students' home situations or family situations. And we all know we have those situations where students are having difficulties getting their parents to just do their FAFSA for them. So one of the questions that is always a concern to me is, how do we get this student some financial aid when their parent is being uncooperative? And of course, the first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, let's run down the list to see if you can qualify as a dependent student. So I think maybe before we sign off, we might need to go over that again, just so it's plain.
Yeah. So let me just address that now. So you're absolutely right. There are some situations where a parent, for whatever reason, will not complete the FAFSA for their student, will not share their financial information for the student. And you're right, colleges are given the latitude to make what would normally be a dependent student an independent student due to unusual circumstances. However, those circumstances are at the very extreme, meaning if there is a substantiated documentation of a severe abuse or abuse in the home, or if a parent has become incarcerated, or if a parent has abandoned the family, and then the student and the student support network can substantiate and document that that is the case, then a college can make that otherwise dependent student an independent student. But a parent simply saying, and I want parents to hear this, a parent simply saying, I don't want to share my information, is not just cause for a school, meaning a college, to turn your dependent student to an independent student. Now, even if after conversations with parents and explaining the process to them, and if they still refuse to provide their information and there's no documentation of abuse or abandonment or a parent being incarcerated or somehow otherwise mentally unable to intelligently go through this process with their student, then the federal government will allow a student to only take out federal loans. So if that student would have normally been eligible for some free grant money from the federal government, however, their parent or parents refuse to provide financial information as required, the only recourse the federal government has is to allow that student to take out a federal loan. They would not be eligible to receive any federal grant money.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It gets deep. It can get deep.
That whole thing I was totally clueless about. That's why I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it can get deep.
So for parents, because sometimes parents think, well, once my kid graduates high school and they're 18, they're grown and I don't want to give them my information and you need to figure out a way to do this yourself. Understand, parents, for purposes of not just federal financial aid, but even state financial aid. And in the case of many, many scholarships, um, dependency is someone under the age of 24 that is not married and in undergraduate school, and they have no dependents of their own that they're supporting. So I just want parents to know and understand that. So let's talk about the various sources of student financial aid. There's federal aid. So remember, we're back to building our student financial aid house. So the foundation is federal aid. There's state aid, and I just put here Texas, but it could be any state. It could be New York, it could be Minnesota, it could be California, it could be Hawaii, whatever the state is that you live in. There's institutional aid, and institutional aid is just a fancy name for money that comes from the college that you plan to attend or are attending. And then there's other aid, and other aid is external aid, and that includes scholarships, external scholarships. So, federal student aid, as we said, is the foundation of student financial aid. It's money provided by the federal government for college expenses. It's it's money from the federal government that is administered by the U.S. Department of Education, the Federal Student Aid Program. Most federal student aid is need-based and can include grants, loans, employment, and tax credits. So as an undergraduate student, that means someone that's going for their first bachelor's degree or an associate's degree, or if they're in trade school or they're in vocational school, or if they're even taking a certificate program. These are the federal financial aid programs available. The federal Pell grant, the federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, the Teach Grant, federal work study, federal direct student loans. There used to be a federal loan called the Federal Perkins Loan that no longer exists. And then there are some federal tax credits that families can take advantage of. So let's start at the very top. The federal Pell Grant is a need-based grant awarded to undergraduate and some graduate level students, but it's primarily for undergraduate students. So that's for students that are going for their first bachelor's degree, or if they're in a community college. This is the grant for them. If you are eligible, you will receive the full amount you qualify for. And it doesn't matter what college you go to, whatever amount you qualify for, that amount will go with you. Your award is based upon a couple of things. It's based upon something called your expected family contribution, and that information comes from the completing of the FAFSA, the cost of attendance to attend the school, and enrollment status, part-time versus full-time. Right now, the maximum a student can receive is $6,495, and that will be up until June 30th of this year. And that's based on full-time enrollment. And full-time enrollment, just so you know, is generally 12 credits or more a semester. You do not have to pay this back, which is a good thing. And just about a year or so ago, the federal Pell Grant is available for year-round study. So that means if a student is going to take a summer class and they need assistance with paying for that summer class, you can now receive Pell to pay for the summer class, which is great. So this is it's year-round study. But there's also something you should know about the Pell Grant. Once you have received a Pell Grant for 6 semesters or the equivalent, and that's generally 6 years, you will no longer be eligible for additional Pell Grants. So what that means, parents and students, is if your child or if you do not complete your undergraduate degree within 6 years, and you go beyond 6 years and you receive Pell, a Pell grant for all 6 years that you've been in school, but you have not completed your degree, you will not be able to get any more Pell grants. And I think that's something really that families really need to hear. Then there's something called the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. Some schools call it Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. Some schools call it Educational Opportunity Grant, but it is all part of the same family, and this pot of money that comes from the federal government. This is also a need-based grant for people that are eligible to receive a Pell Grant. However, what's different about this grant is this is what they call first come, first serve, meaning the earlier you complete your FAFSA, the chances of you receiving this money are far greater. If you wait too long to file your FAFSA, you may not be able to get this money because it will be all gone. You can get up to $4,000 a year. You do not have to repay this grant back. And most colleges do participate in this program. However, there are a few that do not. So you want to check with the college that you plan to attend to make sure that they participate in this federal program. Next is something called the Teacher Education Assistance for College and Higher Education, or TEACH grant. This is a grant that comes from the federal government that is not based on need, but individuals that intend to teach in a high need field, in a high needs area. And what's great about this grant, it is not based on need. But if you intend to become a teacher and teach in an underserved community in a high need field, this is a grant that is available to you. This grant is for undergraduate students, for graduate students, or post-baccalaureate students that plan to teach. However, with this grant, you must sign a contract in order to receive this. And just so you know, if you do not fulfill the terms of the contract, the federal government is going to turn that money that they gave you as a grant into a loan, and you'll have to pay it back. So only take this grant if you truly intend on going into education and teaching. Then there's something called the Federal Work Study Program. This is a need-based program that allows students and grant students work assignments on or off campus. Students are paid the minimum wage for the state that the college is in. Undergraduate students are paid by the hour. Now, I want to ask Mr. Hayward this question because I know you are currently at on a college campus. Do you know how your school has handled work study during the pandemic?
Yes, ma'am. The way it's handled here at Prairie View, work study, of course, comes in two different components. It comes where the student is using it to work off whatever remaining balance they might have, or it's employment that is regarded as student employment. So, of course, as you mentioned, it is need-based. So based off of that need, a student can get access to it to help reconcile whatever other amounts or money that are owed to their account. Or if they're solid across the line, they can actually use it as student employment and receive pay in the form of a paycheck so that they can do what they need to survive here at the campus. So it works in both aspects here at Prairie View. And actually our students at our Welcome Center, where we conduct our tour, they fall in one of those categories when it comes to our tours. Our students are the ones, myself and my colleague trained them, and they're the ones giving you the tour. So they will either be work study students or they are actually working students.
I'm glad that you said that, because work study, although the money is sort of underwritten by the federal government, is administered differently at different schools. So no, the way it's done at Prairie View, it may not be done that way at another college. However, right. So I want parents and students to be mindful of that. However, it is a wonderful opportunity not only for the student to earn money, but also to gain a lot of work experience, which is absolutely crucial as they move throughout their academic career. So yes, you are paid. The way the work study program is administered depends on what college you plan to go to or what college you're attending. But it also serves as an opportunity to gain some really valuable work experience while you're in college.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Next comes the largest federal financial aid program, and it is not a grant program. It is the William D. Ford Federal Direct Loan Program, or Federal Direct Loan Program as it's known. This is the largest of all federal financial aid programs, and it is the loan program. There currently are two types of federal loans. And I'm going to keep using the term federal loans because in a little while, we're going to talk about the differences between a federal loan and a non-federal loan. So for the federal direct loans, there are two types. There's the subsidized and unsubsidized. Sometimes they're called sub and unsub. They are exactly the same, except a subsidized loan is need-based, and the federal government pays the interest on the loan while the student is enrolled in college, 6 months after leaving school, and for any periods of deferment. An unsubsidized loan are non-need based, and the student is or the student's family is responsible for repayment of the interest while the student is attending school. And again, the determinant on whether you will receive a subsidized or an unsubsidized is based upon the information put in from the FAFSA, put on the FAFSA. But I do need to say this: most students receive both a subsidized and subsidized loan, a subsidized and unsubsidized loan while they're in college. Would you say that's been your experience, Mr. Haywood?
As a former student and currently now with our students, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there's a couple of things you need to know about the Federal Direct Loan Program. You cannot borrow whatever you want to borrow. There are limits on what the federal government allows a student to borrow. So if you are a first year student, so you are a freshman, you can only borrow up to $5,500 per year. If you are a second year student, meaning you're a sophomore in college, you can only borrow up to $6,500 per year. If you are in your third, fourth, or fifth year of undergraduate school, meaning you are a junior or senior, or if you had to take a fifth year, or if you're in a program that's a 5-year program, you can borrow no more than $7,500 per year. So the total amount of federal direct loans that a student can borrow for 5 years of undergraduate school cannot exceed $31,000. If it's an independent student, they cannot exceed $57,000. And I think that's important to note because we all know about the federal direct, we all know about the student loans. And whenever they're talking about student loans, they just lump them all together. They say student loans. They don't differentiate between whether these are private student loans, whether they are federal student loans. A federal student loan, you cannot get more than $31,000 over 5 years. And I think that's important to know. That's important to give an explanation. So when you hear that someone is $100,000 in student loan debt coming out of undergraduate out of undergraduate school, understand that is not from a federal student loan. And this is just some information in terms of the interest rate. Right now, the interest rate is very low. less than 4%, and it's fixed. Just so you know, legislatively, a federal student loan can never go above 8.25%. Okay. So I want to know if you have any thoughts, any questions regarding the federal student loan program, Miss Monique or Mr. Haywood, because that's always the big topic of conversation.
Right.
Student loans. Student loans.
I think it's important, as you mentioned, and I would hope that when our students, whether they're coming here to Prairie View or going to any of our family institutions, that the financial aid advisors are letting them know there is a cap to this.
Absolutely.
So that they can help advise them to be fiscally responsible. And as I'm always out on the road recruiting, I always tell students when we discuss the aspects of financial aid, remember to take out, because you know as well as I know, financial aid has received a bad rap over the years. And I always tell students there's nothing wrong with taking out a loan, but you have to remember you're taking out for what you need, not what you want. There's a difference. You need a laptop. You need school supplies. You want that MK purse. You want those J's. It's a difference.
Absolutely. And just so students and families really understand this, the federal loan program does not allow a student to take out any amount that they want. There is a cap per year a student can take out. Again, first-year students cannot take out more than $5,500 for the entire freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
So be mindful. As you said, I'm glad that you said student loans have gotten a bad rap because student loans have been misused. Not only there, and I'm not putting anybody out on front. There have been financial institutions and things, and I'm not speaking of federal student loans, but there have been financial institutions that have preyed upon parents' fears and students' fears, and have gotten students and families to take these huge loans that they really didn't need to take. In many cases, knew that the individual family would never be able to pay it back.
Yeah.
Here's something else you need to know about a federal student loan. Federal student loans can be deferred. So right now, because of COVID, for the past almost 2 years now, federal student loans have been in deferment, meaning individuals that have federal student loans have not had to repay them during the COVID pandemic. That is not the case in most cases for a private student loan. So there are advantages to taking federal student loans. When you hear about loan forgiveness programs, they are applicable only to federal student loans.
Mm-hmm.
They're not applicable for private student loans. So parents and students, please be mindful. Again, you do not need to be afraid of a education student loan, but you must be smart. You must be smart. And that's why something like this, and I thank you and Miss Monique so much for giving me this opportunity, because so many of our families are not aware of this process. People just like to talk about how to get scholarships, and that's wonderful. I'm going to talk about that. But understand that even if you receive external scholarships or even money from the school, you still have to go through this process. Mm-hmm. And so you will need to understand this process. Okay. So now I want to talk about, one other thing I want to mention, I didn't say. For the federal direct loan program, that is the student's loan in the student's name. And there is no credit check for a federal direct loan because the loan belongs to the student. There is no credit check for a federal direct loan. I'm going to keep repeating that. A federal direct loan, there is no credit check because it's the student's loan. But now let's talk about a loan program, a federal loan program where there is a credit check, and that is the Federal Parent Plus Loan. This is a loan program through the federal government that allows parents, that means the biological, the adoptive, or the step parents of a dependent student, to borrow money to assist with paying their child college education. Parents can borrow an amount up to the cost of attendance minus any other aid awarded. So if the cost of attendance is $40,000 and the student received $25,000 in aid, and that leaves a balance of $15,000, that's the amount, up to the amount the parent can borrow if they choose to. So in order for a parent to be eligible to obtain a federal Parent Plus loan, that parent must be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-U.S. citizen. They cannot be in default on a student loan in their name, nor can they owe any back taxes. They cannot have adverse credit history. A credit check is done for the Federal Parent Plus loan. However, the criteria that is used for determining credit worthiness for a Federal Parent Plus loan is different than if you're buying a car, if you're looking to purchase a home, or for a credit card. The lender of that loan is the U.S. Department of Education. And this is here, but there's been changes. Before, you used to have to start repaying this loan 60 days after the funds were dispersed. Well, now they allow you to don't start repayment until your child leaves school. And that's something important to know. So there's a couple of other things that I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about, but there's something called the Department of Defense Post 9/11 Veterans Assistance Bill, and this is formerly called the GI Bill. So if you have a parent that has served in the military for at least 10 years and they have any unused GI credits, they can roll those credits over to the student. And then there are a number of tax credits that parents can take advantage of at the federal level if they have children in college. So I'm going to right here, and I'm going to ask Miss Monique. Miss Monique, you have any questions?
No, I don't. I just got so much information, and I'm so excited about the things that I've learned in this brief
moment. And that's just the federal government. That's just the federal government. But I'm going to now kind of jump into institutional aid. I'm not going to talk about state aid because state aid differs from state to state. But I do want to share this information. A lot of people don't know about, there's a program, and I'm just going to pull out my notes because I want to give this information because I found out that a lot of people didn't know about this. But there's something called state and regional college tuition discounts. Did you know about that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so how it works is there are certain parts of the country, and unfortunately, those of us in New York, we don't have it, it doesn't exist in our part of the country. So let's get on our legislators, right? But
right.
In the Midwest part of the country, and that would include the states of Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, and Wisconsin. Then there's a New England component. But I want to talk about actually the southern region, which is where most of our HBCUs are at, right? In the southern part of the United States. Well, the states that participate are Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. And how this program works is if you are a legal resident of one of those states, and you go to a public institution in one of the states in the consortium, you can be eligible to receive in-state tuition at that school.
Wow.
So let me repeat that. If you reside and are a legal resident of one of the states in this consortium, you can go to a public institution in another one of these states and receive in-state tuition.
Wow.
So what that means, excuse me, we're doing this live, but life happens, and I'm on grandma duty. So I just need to close the door because I just saw the door open. and I saw the little person run. So what that means is, let's say you have a student that is a resident of the state of Georgia, and they want to attend Prairie View University, which is in Texas. Both Georgia and Prairie View are in this what they call Southern regional program. So if that student resides in Georgia and they look to go to Prairie View, Prairie View is a public institution in the state of Texas. They would need to contact the coordinator of this program.
Okay.
And I believe there's a contract that they have to complete, but they would then receive in-state tuition as if they were a Texas resident. So for those of you who don't know, if you attend a public institution and you're from another state, you're going to pay a different tuition than those people that are from that state. So
yes,
I'm
indeed.
I live in New York State. If I went to Prairie View A&M, or if my grandchild, went to Prairie View, I would be paying, or their family would have to pay out-of-state tuition, which is always more. Than someone that is a resident of Texas. But this is something called the State and Regional College Tuition Discount Program. And I don't know if I can put it in the chat, Miss Monique.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we put that and can we put the flames around it, Mo? Because that's hot. Yeah.
I don't know. You're asking me to do fancy stuff. You're asking me to do fancy stuff. Now, come on now. But I am going to put the website here, and I'm going to encourage those that are interested to go to the website, because there you will be able to get the information on who the coordinator for such programs are at. And so, as I said, these programs exist in different regions of the country. There's a Midwestern region, a New England region, a Southern region, and a Western region. Unfortunately, states like New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, or in what they call the Mid-Atlantic region, for the most part, we don't have such a program.
Wow, it's almost as if they're doing a disservice to you guys over there, Ms. Vanessa.
Well,
that information there.
That's another
podcast for us.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast. But I wanted to share that information because when I found out about it, I did a deep dive, and I was like, well, I wonder how many students even know about this, how many families know about this.
It's true.
To at least make the inquiry to find out their eligibility to participate. And as I said, I did do a deep dive, at least in the state of Texas, and I just want families to know that Prairie View A&M is one of the participating colleges.
Oh, Lord.
Okay. I'm going to go, but I actually want to just move right ahead. I'm going to skip something. And the reason why I'm going to skip something is because I want to get right here to institutional aid. So institutional aid is student financial aid provided to students by the individual college or university. This is not federal aid. This is not state aid. So Prairie View may have money. Howard may have money. Wilberforce may have money. This is their money that they award to their students. And this money could be in the form of grants, scholarships, or loans. So oftentimes when you hear people say, my child received a full scholarship from school XYZ, what they're really saying is that my child received a lot of institutional aid from said college. Now, institutional aid can be need-based, it can be merit-based, or it can be both. So grants and loans that come from the colleges, because a lot of people don't understand that even colleges, the individual colleges, give loans to the students attending that school. It's not just grants, but if a student, and as I said, most of the time it is in the form of a grant, but just know that there are times that some colleges will award small loans. And usually when I say a small loan, it's usually $1,000 or less. So institutional aid usually works like this. It's awarded annually. It's usually based on financial need, or in many cases, it may be based on merit. In some cases, it's based on both. The college determines the renewability. So if a college says they're awarding your student a 4-year, $40,000 scholarship, that generally means your student will receive $10,000 each year for the 4 years that they're contingent upon them maintaining usually a certain GPA. And it usually requires a separate application. Although what I'm finding out that a lot of colleges do is once a student applies, and if the student has a particular GPA, they will automatically put them in the running to receive some of that merit-based institutional aid or institutional scholarships. So scholarships from the college, again, could be academic, need-based or non-need-based. They could be athletic. There may be other criteria. You know, they may be money that's awarded. Let's say if a student has a particular skill or talent, and again, it usually requires a separate application. But there are a couple of questions that you as a family should always ask about institutional aid. One you want to ask is the scholarship or grant awarded renewable, meaning if you receive a letter that says your child has been awarded a $10,000 college scholarship from that school, you want to find out, is that $10,000 for the entire 4 years they're there, or is that $10,000 just for that 1 year? Because if it's $10,000 for that 1 year, what happens the following year? Or if it's $10,000 over 4 years, that's $2,500 a year. Is that enough to make up for any gapping or any deficit you may have? The other thing, parents, you want to ask, if I accept your institutional aid, will I still be able to get my federal and or state financial aid? So these are some questions that families should always ask when they receive any institutional money, i.e. scholarships from the college. And then there's other aid, and these are the private sources of financial aid, and they're in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of organizations and programs, in the probably billions of dollars. And I'm going to let Mr. St. Clair and Miss Monique even talk a little about this, because there is so many scholarships. It's so difficult sometimes to even pinpoint because there's so many. And again, this is money that's external money. The person or the organization sets the criteria for the award. It's generally awarded on an annual basis. Scholarships are incorporated into the financial aid award package, and they require, not may, but they usually always require a separate application. So Miss Monique and Mr. Haywood, I just want you guys, because you guys do a lot more one-on-one direct working with students and their families. What's been your experience in terms of the information that you provide families about scholarships, either at your school or scholarships in general?
Well, me personally, when I'm out, I always try to give students more information around scholarships than they ask. Because the common question, and Monique and I talk about this often, and you and I have actually talked about it quite often as well. It's amazing to me that that's the first question that the students ask when they come up to the table. Tell me about scholarships. And it makes me wonder, okay, tell you about scholarships. So until you came to this college fair, you had no clue. You didn't know anything about scholarships. It just hit you in the head and you decided to ask now when you knew that your aspirations were to go to higher education. But that's just me inside of my head. And so what I do is I give them other resources. And the simple clue that I tell them is that scholarships are available, but you also have to put in work for them. So I give the students homework. I always advise them that in addition, keyword, in addition to doing your regular homework, I need you to commit 2 hours a week searching out scholarships. And that means minimum. And then I tell them I need you to apply for at least, or a minimum, that's our word, that's our family word, guys, a minimum 10 scholarships a week, because the ratio of you getting at least hopefully 10% one or 20% two will be a little better. It's like baseball. If you go up to bat 10 times and you hit the ball 3 times, that's a 300 batting average, which very few baseball players can achieve. So you take that analogy when you do scholarships. So if this money that you're seeking, knowing that a lot of schools have merit-based scholarships and they're based specifically off of your GPA and your test scores for those schools that aren't or are test optional or aren't test optional, that's additional work. Yes, scholarships are available, but you also have to be prepared to put in this work. So that means I need you guys to get that essay, that summary together that they will help you put together, meaning your advisors. Go to your English instructor so you can put this resume together. Not resume, but essay. And I had some information, Ms. Vanessa, that I was going to share with you. And it goes over the actual topics that these resumes, I don't know why I keep saying resumes, these essays, I guess because they're coming to work here at the university, but these topics that these essays should cover. And when they get the basis of the essay, they can revise and edit it based off of what that specific organization is asking of them. Absolutely. So they can qualify for that scholarship. So all of it is in preparation. So when I get these questions from our nieces and nephews, it makes me wonder again, okay, so if you're asking me about scholarships, and this is not to throw advisors under the bus, because I got some advisors that are working hard for our students, but what is being told or what is not being told to our students when it comes to scholarships? And I give them one big picture so that they can understand that there are scholarships available. You have to do the work.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad you said that.
It's true.
Because we are the largest consumers. I'm sorry, Ms. Vanessa, what you say?
No, I was just asking if Miss Monique had anything to add, because she's so right about this. You're so right in what you're saying. Like, you are, ooh, I'm like, amen.
It does. It is a challenge because, like, Mr. St. Clair said, and like you have stressed, several scholarships go unawarded. I guess that's the proper way to say it, because people don't know. And, it's common. Lack of knowledge, we perish. Yep. And so that's why I was so adamant. And I know Anthony has the UNCF thing that I'm switching screens and watching that. That's why I keep coming in and out, which they're doing good. They talked about financial this morning. And I was like, but our people, we need to just get self out the way and learn from each other.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
Be transparent enough to say you don't know.
There's no harm in saying you don't know. And let me tell you something else. Let me tell you something else as it relates to external scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
If you should start looking for scholarships realistically the spring of your sophomore year, not junior year, sophomore year.
Yeah.
You want to begin to identify scholarships. Most of these
Right.
scholarships, and I'm thinking of big and mid-sized scholarships, the
And that's
same deadline dates generally.
very
So I'll give you let's use this year for an example, and I'm gonna just talk about some of the big ones. Let's
yes,
talk
ma'am.
about the Gates Scholarship because a lot of times people not, the Gates Scholarship, when it first started, it was called the Gates Millennium Scholarship, and it was
I
only
remember.
supposed to last, I believe, 10 years. And it
Mm-hmm.
extended beyond 10 years. The
Yes, ma'am.
Gates Scholarship deadline is in early September.
That's
So
true.
if you are a current junior and you will be in 12th grade this fall, you need to obtain the information right now on the criteria for the Gates Scholarship, if that's a scholarship you're interested in, because it has a very early deadline date. And just so you know, that's a scholarship that requires you write, I believe, at least 7 or 8 essays.
It does. And that's where I get upset with some of the scholars I deal with because it's like you have to be on it. But in our program, we start kids out early in 7th grade. Like when they come in to us, you have to write a interest letter, introduce yourself to the universities that you want to attend. And,
Absolutely.
and I couldn't ask for any better. I brag about my seniors this year because I don't have to ask them for anything. Like they went into January already having full rides. I don't have, I'm like, where did these seniors come from? I hope they all.
I like it. And so there's those, particularly if you're talking about big scholarships, they
Right.
usually have very early deadline dates, usually anywhere from August to early October. So I
Mm.
know you guys go back to school earlier than we do here in New York. We don't,
Yes.
our kids, I know this past year, I believe school didn't start until September 15th, and the deadline for the Gates Scholarship was something like the 17th of September. So
Hmm.
unless you had that information the spring of your junior year, that was an opportunity that you missed out. Another thing that people don't look for are local scholarships. Local
That part.
scholarships, meaning scholarships that are in your community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that are anywhere from $250 to $1,000. Those scholarships often go unmatched because people are not looking at for them. I say
That's
to parents, if you whatever bank you bank with, your financial institution, usually they have a scholarship too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
even
know,
church.
make the
Yeah.
inquiries. You know, I keep saying I'm from New York, New York City, and New York City is a huge union town. Anybody from
Mhm.
New York City, in New York State, we are union. Most, if not all of these unions have phenomenal scholarships. And
Mhm.
people and parents are not tapping into some, you may belong to a particular religious denomination. They have
That's
scholarships.
Yeah.
some
And
community
we're not
centers.
yeah, yeah, I mean that if your
Mhm.
kid works, if you have a student and they work at Burger King part time, Burger
That's
King has a scholarship only for their employees.
Right.
mm-hmm.
And I think
And
one of the
so,
biggest, I'm sorry, Miss, go ahead, Miss Mark.
no, go ahead.
I've seen one of the biggest misrepresentations that I like to hear when I'm talking to students is that they have their mindset on the big dollar scholarships,
Mm.
not understanding that if you can get a 250 here, a 500 there, all of these add up. Based off of what your particular major is, that $250 could be that book you need or books that you need. So I notice a
Absolutely.
lot of students tend to overlook or look down at the smaller monetary denominational scholarships. No, if you qualify, you stack your paper. You get right. You get the 250. You get the 500.
And those scholarships generally pay you directly. Mm-hmm. They generally send you the check. So let me show you when we're talking about college expenses. We talk about things like tuition, room fees, yada, yada, yada. But those things do not cover when your parents have to get you to that college. If you live in New York and I'm going to Prairie View, I have to fly down there. My parents or family members are coming to help move me in. Mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's an expense. I have to pay for things like if I'm living on campus, dorm-related expenses, sheets, and things like that. Those are not covered under financial aid. They're not covered under financial aid. Mm-hmm. And if you get enough of those small scholarships, housing deposits, acceptance deposits are not covered under financial aid. So you've been accepted at Prairie View. Prairie View requires you put a deposit. Am I correct?
Yeah, and if I can, I'm glad you mentioned that, Ms. Vanessa. This is one of the things I always tell students, and Mo, being that we're all HBCU products across the board. I tell students the housing is the most expensive part of your application process. You have to prepare for the deposit and then your initial first month's rent that, depending on how financial aid, as we're going through this with you, Ms. Vanessa, is situated, you have to pay that prior to your financial aid even being processed.
Absolutely. They require a deposit. And those things are not covered under financial aid. So when you're going and getting these small scholarships, $250, $500, those scholarships, they generally will send you the check, will help offset those expenses that are not covered under financial aid. I don't care if you even receive a full ride. The full ride does not pay for your family to get to Prairie View. It does not pay for your family to stay at the hotel for the 3 or 4 days that they're moving you in. So all of these are college-related expenses that families must prepare for. Before I go on, I just want to throw these two things out. One, if you are a parent that has a college savings account, like a 529 for your child, understand that is going to be counted as a parental asset. If another family member, like grandparents or aunts and uncles, has a 529 and your student is the beneficiary, it is not counted as a parental asset. And that's very important when you're talking about the completing of the FAFSA and some other student aid forms. The second thing, and I'm going to get the second part I'll talk about as we go into this. So I want to get through this. So that's what I wanted to say about scholarships. So what can outside scholarships do? These are external scholarships and what they can't do. Outside scholarships can meet any unmet needs you may have, which is a term called gapping, and are generally reduced loans and jobs. So if you have a $5,000 or $10,000 gap between what you receive and the cost of attendance, and you get a $10,000 scholarship, it will go to meet that unmet need. What an outside scholarship will not do is replace the expected family contribution in a need-based award. Okay, and these are some other options that families can consider. So I talked about the 529. Every state has a college savings program, a 529, or there's another type of account. There's called a Corderville account, education account. You don't see this as much anymore. U.S. savings bonds. Some people will use life insurance policies, retirement accounts. I actually discourage families in 98% of the cases from going and taking any money out of their retirement account. to pay for the children's education, because that money is intended for their retirement. So, really quick, well, not so much quick, but I just want to go over a couple of things that are very important. Everybody talks about the FAFSA. FAFSA, 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 FAFSA. They'll FAFSA you to death. Well, what exactly is the FAFSA? The FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Student Aid, and it determines your expected family contribution, and it determines your eligibility to receive federal financial aid. So the FAFSA does not give you any money. FAFSA is simply the tool that is used by the federal government, by the state government, by the college, even some scholarships, to determine your eligibility for need-based financial aid. That's what the FAFSA is. And it stands for Free Application for Student Aid. The FAFSA is required for most state, institutional, and private student aid programs, including some scholarships, and different states determine their FAFSA filing date. And that's important to know. So if you're from New York and you're going to be going or plan to go to a college in another state, you need to find out the FAFSA filing priority filing date for that state where the college is at. The FAFSA opens up October 1st of every year. So I always encourage families, if the FAFSA opens up October 1st of every year, you should have your FAFSA completed by November 15th. They use the 2 years prior tax return. So for the class of 2022, the tax, or for students that are currently in college, the tax return for the FAFSA for school year 2022-2023 is year 2020. For students that are graduating in June, our juniors in June of 2023, the tax year they will be using is 2021. And the FAFSA is free. The filing is free. Do not allow anybody to charge you or your family to file the FAFSA. It is a free application. Okay? Free, free, free. And this just talks about some of the things you have to do in preparation to complete the FAFSA. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but you must obtain, both you and your parent must obtain something called an FSA ID number. I would say if you are a current high school junior, that you file for your FSA ID number around June or July of this year. And this is just some information on what you need to complete the FAFSA, and just some information. Again, dependent students, your parental information is required, and that includes, if in the case if you have a step parent, their information must be included. Independent students are not required to provide any parental information. And this just shows you what the FAFSA looks like. And again, the FAFSA can be completed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They even have a mobile app, which is called My Student Aid mobile app. If you start completing your FAFSA on the mobile app, you could go and finish it up on a desktop or a laptop or vice versa. And this is just some information for resources to help you complete your FAFSA. They have a Facebook page, they have a YouTube channel, they have a Twitter account. And so this explains what the expected family contribution is. And all that means, this is the EFC is what the federal government says your family can reasonably contribute to your child's education. The lower the EFC, the more federal and or state aid you can receive. Now, there's another application that is required when you apply to many colleges. It is something called the Css Profile. It's administered by the College Board. Just so you know, I believe there's only one HBCU that requires this form, and I believe that's Alabama A&M, but you definitely need to check. But this is a supplemental needs analysis form that's used in addition to the FAFSA at many schools. And that's just give you an idea of what it looks like. And there's something called a non-custodial parent if the student is if their parents are divorced or separated or not married, and one parent is a non-custodial parent. Okay, and then sometimes individual schools will have their own financial aid forms, and you definitely need to check with the school. But this is what I wanted to come to, because this is the fun part. All of that comes down to this. College costs will vary from school to school. Generally, private institutions cost more than public institutions, and out-of-state students attending public colleges will pay more than in-state students attending those same institutions. In addition to things like tuition, fees, books, supplies, some students will have room and board, health insurance, transportation, and other miscellaneous expenses. When you put all of those expenses together, it makes up something called the cost of attendance, or COA. And the COA is different for every school and it's different for every student. So let me show you what is included in the cost of attendance. Tuition and fees, room and board if applicable, books, supplies, transportation, health insurance. Those are indirect costs, and miscellaneous personal expenses. So I just wanted to use these two examples to give you an example of what I mean. I have Baylor College on one side. Currently, because I'm using Texas in this example, Baylor College the tuition is $51,738 per year. When you put in the room and board and the fees, the room and board at Baylor is $8,926. Fees, and these are mandatory fees, are around $200. When you put in books and supplies, that's roughly about $1,390, and that cost can be different for every student. So if you are a science major or even an art major, your books and supplies generally will cost more than someone that's, let's say, a psychology major or education major. Then they put in things like transportation and miscellaneous. And parents should also ask about any miscellaneous charges on your student's financial aid award letter. So, and then health insurance, and I put question marks there because every student attending a college in the United States now is required to have health insurance. And if your family does not carry you on their health insurance plan, the college will charge you for health insurance. And it could be anywhere between about $1,500 up to $3,000. But parents, just know, if you carry your children under your employer-sponsored health insurance, you do not need to take the college's health insurance. So, let me just see here. The cost of attendance roughly to attend Baylor College in Texas, which is a private institution, is $70,548 per year. So let's look at Prairie View. The tuition at Prairie View, which is a public Texas institution and an HBCU, is $11,299 per year. The room and board at Prairie View, $7,795 per year. The fees are roughly about $80, and that could be a little more, but roughly around $80. And these are mandatory fees. Books and supplies, again, this amount will be different for each student. Again, depending on your major, your books and supplies could be substantially more. Then there's the transportation slash miscellaneous, $4,295. And that price is generally something as they call a fluid amount, depending on where you live and other factors. But generally, to attend Prairie View A&M University, it is around just under $25,000 per year, which is a steal. Okay, so in the very beginning, we talked about financial need, and financial need is what colleges determine your financial aid award on. Financial need is the difference between the cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution that comes from the Fafsa. So just so you know, the EFC never changes, no matter where you go to college. So in this example, Baylor College, $70,548. Cost of attendance, mine is $2,500 a year. That's what they say this family could afford to contribute to their child's education. The student's financial need is $68,048. And how do they pay for this? It could be federal and or state aid, institutional aid, it could be scholarships. It could include loans. But this $68,000 has to be zero before the student enters school. The same principle with Prairie View. $24,849, the cost of attendance at Prairie View. Minus the expected family contribution. Always note that expected family contribution, or EFC, never changes, equals $22,349. How are they going to pay this? They can pay this if they receive federal aid and or state aid or institutional aid or external aid, and that includes loan. These are what your financial award is based upon. So, Mr. Haywood and Miss Mo, all of that to get to that. And that is generally the overall basis of how they determine your financial aid award.
I wish I knew this before I went to Wilberforce.
Right. That was an awesome breakdown, Ms. Vanessa. That was an awesome breakdown.
Okay.
This
and
much
that is
needed.
why I want families to understand the process. Scholarships are fantastic. They're wonderful. We should strive to get as many scholarships as our kids can get. Mm-hmm. But even in receiving scholarships, you still must know the process.
Yeah.
If your student receives a full scholarship from Prairie View, it is still not going to, generally, you will still have to pay the EFC. Mm-hmm. Because that is your contribution. Mm-hmm. You have to know how to
break that down to them again, Miss Vanessa. Break that down to them again. That's what I'm saying for. In effect, family contribution. You put that in there.
Yeah, and then I'm glad that you stressed the meaning of EFC, because they see it, and I get that question all the time from parents.
All the time.
What does EFC stand for? You know,
expected family contribution, and it could be anything from $0 up to $100,000, depending on the information that you put in the FAFSA. So let me just quickly talk about the FAFSA. A couple of things I want to let parents know.
Yes, ma'am.
Back in 2020, there was a Federal Reconciliation Act. It's called the Fafsa Reconciliation Act of 2020. So over the next couple of years, the FAFSA will change. So the first change was the eliminated the requirement for male students to register for selective service. That went into effect last year. In the next 1 or 2 years, the FAFSA is going to change where it's going to be fewer questions. I think it says something down to about 37 questions. Also, in the next couple of years, not immediately, but in the next couple of years, there's no longer going to be an EFC. It's going to be replaced with something called Student Aid Index. But for right now, this is what you're working with. So when completing your FAFSA, a couple of things. Parents, do not lie on your FAFSA. Because oftentimes, if you think you need to embellish, if you think you need to embellish, you really don't. Because FAFSA looks at a parent's current financial situation. Also, if you are a single parent, meaning you are the custodial parent of your child or children, FAFSA does not ask you about the non-custodial parent. They do not ask you about the non-custodial parent. They do not ask you the value if you own a home, the home that you live in. They do not ask the value of that. What they will ask you and it's about your assets. So I'm going to just say this, parents. If you've got money in a savings account, $5, $10, $15,000 that you're saving, this would be a good time to put as much money as you can, let's say in your retirement account, because FAFSA does not ask you for the value of your IRA or 401k. They don't ask you for that, because when they're doing the computation on the FAFSA form, they only look at 5% of parents' assets that's fit in. So if you've got $10,000 in a savings and or checking account, they're only going to look at about just a little under 6% of that. Now, if your child has $5,000 in a savings account under their name, because that information is asked for in the FAFSA, they look at 20%. So if I can say anything to parents now, particularly parents that have sophomores, juniors, even seniors, but let's talk. I'm gonna start with juniors. Juniors, start identifying, as Mr. Haywood said, start identifying scholarships right now. Find out what the requirements are, find out when those deadlines are, and begin to put all the pieces of that puzzle together. That's the best thing you can do right now, in addition to doing the best you can in your academic coursework in school. Identify which colleges you will be applying to, and find out what each school requires to receive institutional aid, because it varies from school to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad
that's what you're doing now. And today is what, February 12th.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm really going to say it again. That's what you're doing right now. Oh, I just want to tell parents another thing. I want to say another thing to parents. I talked about the health insurance component, because a lot of people don't know it is now required at every college. I don't care, PWI, HBCU, and everything in between, that every student must have health insurance. This is different from the fee you pay for the health office at the school. This is health insurance. If you carry your child or children on your employer-sponsored health insurance plan, make sure that the college takes that fee off, because they're going to automatically put it on. And sometimes it's bundled in that term miscellaneous. You always want to ask the school, what does miscellaneous mean? What is miscellaneous? And they'll have to say, well, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing. If one of those things is health insurance, and you have health insurance on your child, you have them take it off. And that can save you anywhere between $1,500 and $3,000 a year. And a lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Okay. That's something that you can do. Now, the other thing you can do, juniors, I'm starting with juniors. Make sure you have your FAFSA completed. I don't even want to just say FAFSA, because if you're applying to a college that requires the FAFSA and the Css Profile, because they both open on October 1st, you want to have those applications completed, my estimation, by November 15th. Because the earlier you complete your FAFSA, whether you're applying early decision or not, there are pots of money that are available contingent upon how early you apply. Mm-hmm. And one of them I talked about was that federal pot of money, FSCOG. I'll give you an example. I worked with a family a couple of years ago. This lady had been coming to my workshops around the city for years, from the time her son was in the 9th grade. So if I was doing a workshop, I would see her there. The son was in the 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. And one of the things I always said to stress to people, try to have that FAFSA done by the 15th of November. So her son is at an HBCU, and when she received her financial aid award letter, she noticed there was no FSCOG money on there.
Oh, wow.
And she called me. I said, when did I said, when did you complete your FAFSA? And she had actually completed her FAFSA by October 30th. I said, did you
I have
print
a question, Ms. Vanessa. I have a question.
Yes.
Now, they moved the date. Now, this is where my parents get a lot of confusion because they moved the date to October that the FAFSA is open. But a lot of the taxes aren't done till January.
No, that's not true. Because FAFSA uses something, the term is called prior.
Got it.
Meaning, unless you haven't done your taxes in 2 years, your taxes are done. So for students that are graduating June of 2023, current juniors.
Okay.
And they will be filing a FAFSA beginning October 1st of this year. The tax return that their family will use will be for 2021.
Oh.
That's the tax return we're completing right now. So unless there's some extenuating circumstances, most people will have their 21 taxes done by the fall. Is that correct? You got a whole bunch of money, or you owe a whole bunch of money, or you're trying to, something else. But generally, it's done. So that cannot be an excuse because they're not using the prior year; they're using the prior year.
Got it. Because every year that's always the big hiccup. We can't do.
No. So, for example, students that are current seniors that will be in college in the fall, 2022 school year 22. I got to start saying 22, 23. The tax return that their families used was for 2020.
Okay.
The other thing is know the priority FAFSA filing date for the state that your child is going to go to college in. So if I have a child, I live in New York. If my child is going to go to college in North Carolina, I need to know what the priority filing date for the state of North Carolina is.
Okay.
And I want to go back to something you said earlier, Mr. Haywood, when you talked about institutional aid and test scores, because a lot of colleges are going test optional. That's only for admissions purposes. That's not to receive any institutional money.
Right.
Say that again.
Okay. Many colleges across the country, PWIs, HBCUs, and everything in between have gone test optional. Test optional is only for the purposes for being considered for admission. It is not optional to be considered for institutional aid. And then there's some states like the state of Florida, for example, legislatively, they must require scores, even to be considered for admissions. Okay? So this is why I really want our families to understand this, because when you understand this process, even if something is thrown at you, you have the tools to be able to navigate it yourself. So let me go back to the young man I worked with, him and his mom. So senior year come, he applied to this particular HBCU. He was accepted. She received the financial aid award letter. She said, wait a minute, I don't see any FSEOG money. And she called me. I said, when did you file your FAFSA? She said, I completed it October 30th. I said, you call that school, and this is what you say to them. My FAFSA was completed October 30th of that particular year. What percentage of your students have a completed FAFSA on file? Because you put the school on the defensive now. Excuse me. And they were like, now this was April. They went back and gave her son the entire $4,000 additional dollars.
Wow.
Because she was able to show that FAFSA was completed very early. October 30th, I said, you asked the school, what percentage of their incoming students had a completed FAFSA on file with them October 30th? Because remember, some of that money is first come, first serve.
It is.
And their response was, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're right. And this was April of the following year. They gave the whole $4,000. Excuse me.
That I don't know, Miss Vanessa. You're truly taking me to school today. I'm sitting there like, okay, what else?
Okay, so these are all things that parents and students, you have to empower yourself. Once you get into college, let me give you a couple of things. You make friends with the administrative assistant in the financial aid office. Because when certain information scholarships come in and you have developed a relationship, they don't know.
That's true.
You want to be able to kick over every rock. Now, here's some other financial information to the grandchildren. And this is not necessarily student financial aid related, but it's financial, fiscally responsible, and it's all tied together. Parents, please obtain copies of your students' credit reports before they leave for school.
That's good.
Please, because there should be nothing on it, particularly if they're under the age of 18, because legally they cannot, annualcreditreport.com. This is, you can go to annualcreditreport.com. I hope I spelled it right, and obtain copies from all 3 credit agencies. You will be surprised, and many students, it is to their surprise, that somebody has opened up something in their name when they were a minor, unbeknownst to them. So you want to get copies of your kids' credit reports before they go away to school. You want to get them now and make sure that there's nothing on their credit report, because if there is something on the credit report, you have time to rectify it and they will take it off. So, Miss Monique, and Mr. St. Clair.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Look, I'm going back and forth through computers, and my desktop is freezing. I don't know if it's because it's a weekend, but I'm trying to find, and I found it. And I don't know, Mo, if we'll do this or we'll schedule another financial aid broadcast with our family member. But I found the common application essay prompts that we need to share with our students to prepare them for their essays. So I've been going back and forth. So I think that's something that we can hit.
I just have to shout somebody out. I just saw her say, "Hi, Auntie Sparks." This is this is her Facebook moniker, but this young lady, her name is Nicole Barnwell. Nicole Barnwell is the founder of the HBCU Hub here in New York City. They, to the best of my knowledge, are the only Black-founded, Black-run college access program solely devoted to assisting students get into HBCU.
Yes.
So, I saw it popped up, so I want to say, hey, Nicole, and I would love to introduce you, Mr. Haywood, to Nicole Barnwell and her team, because they do yeoman's job here in New York City in assisting students not only get into HBCUs, but stay and successfully go through.
Okay.
We gotta have her on. Tell her to send her information. We'll have her on, because
I'm gonna tell you something. I absolutely love, and they're a bunch. They are HBCU alum themselves. These are a group of young people. They're maybe in their third. Well, they're young to me, okay. But the work that they do, I'm almost 60, so but the work that they do here in New York City, because and I keep going back to it because New York City, we 8 million people. Our school system, 1 million students, 1,500 schools. So you can imagine, on that kind of scale. And they are the only organization that is Black-founded, Black-run, that is solely devoted to getting students into HBCUs. So you could imagine the challenges and hurdles they do and doing that. But they do a magnificent job. And I just had to shout her out and, just applaud that organization for the work that they do.
Of course. So, yeah, definitely we'll have to, like Mo said, get them on. We'll definitely have to get them on and support and do what we can to help the students.
A couple of things real quick. Deadlines are important. If
Yes,
they
ma'am.
say the deadline is February 1st, 11:59 Eastern Standard Time or Central Standard Time, that's what they mean.
Right.
Early decision versus early action. One is a binding, the other one is non-binding.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Need blind admissions versus need sensitive admissions. I got to talk about this. Need blind admissions is when the admissions office and the financial aid office operate independently. So the admissions office does what it does in evaluating whether a student will be admitted. The financial aid office does what it does independently in putting together a financial award package independently. Need blind. Need sensitive admissions, and many schools will not admit to it, is when they will take into consideration a family's ability to pay in order to before accepting a student. Then there's something called differential preferential packaging, and that what that means is I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say I'm at a college and I want to develop my college's swim team. You know, we're going to get a swim team, and I want to develop that swim team. And I have two students, and the two students are almost the same identically in terms of their grades and test scores and other things. But one of the students is a varsity swimmer on their high school team. Now, I accept both students, but I will give the student that is the varsity swimmer a more preferential financial aid package because I really want them to come to my school. Differential preferential packaging. And then for our high school seniors, National Candidate Day, National Decision Day, May 1st. May 1st is the day you make your final decision on where you're going to go to school. If you are holding multiple acceptances, by May 1st, you should say to school X, I am yours for the next 4 years, and let the other schools know you will not be attending their school. And that's just all. So, I mean, from administratively, that's very helpful from the college, but it's also very considerate because remember, if you're holding multiple acceptances and you don't plan to go to a particular school, that's a spot that they can offer to a student that's on the wait list. So May 1st, National Decision Day, also known as National Candidates Reply Day. Thank you, Miss Mo, Miss Fabulous Mo, and my brother, Mr. St. Clair.
I'm on mute. I'm talking and answering questions in the chat. You did have a question. I believe this person.
I want to ask Nicole. I think she's still on. If she could just put the website for the HBCU Hub in the chat because someone did ask. Because I believe they now virtually work with students from the country. But I mean, they're such a phenomenal organization.
Yes, because that's Maryland. That's up your neck of the woods. I do have scholars everywhere, though. I mean, Mr. Sinclair, no, is no limit to who I help. As long as I get you to school debt free, you can be.
Maybe the two of you can think about doing a project together because they work here in the New York City area, and it is so difficult. They face a lot of challenges with their school system. Educated and getting the word out about HBCUs. I'll put it to you like that.
Hey, link up, link up. Use my page, inbox me. It's strength in numbers, and it's strength in numbers, and that's why it's so adamant. And I know people get tired of me hearing it from me. I'm gonna make sure everybody is aware of the HBCU culture. One, but you made this like I had so many parents ask me questions I can't answer, and anybody know there's no shame. If I don't know, I'm gonna reach out to somebody who does. And I didn't even care that we went over our hour time limit because the information is important when we need to know this stuff. And a lot of us are, either we too shamed or feel we too educated to reach out to somebody. No, Miss Vanessa, I am so grateful.
I'm sorry. I apologize for going over. But I'm glad that you gave me the opportunity because I really want parents to hear this. I want students to hear this. Scholarships are great. I'm going to repeat. Scholarships are great. Look for them. Large ones, small ones, medium ones. But even with the scholarships, you must know this process.
Exactly.
Most
and a
of the
lot
times
of
when
us don't.
students leave school, it's not for academics, it's for money, lack of money.
A lot of us don't know this information. And I've gotten, we're on different platforms and I can't respond to everybody. But please share this information. You probably won't get this nowhere else. But I'm not going to say probably. You won't get this from anywhere else. I've been in the education system. I see what they offer our students. I see what they say. This information right here is solid. And it's on the level where Miss Vanessa was not talking over anybody's head. Sometimes you get that jargon, and our people, when we're not educated about something, we'll sit there and be quiet, knowing we got 1,000 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, y'all. We got to do better. We we got to work on that.
I'm going to say, ABC Youth Futures support this organization. If everybody gives a little, we all don't have to give a lot.
That's true.
If we all give a little, we don't have to give a lot. And support organizations like this that are doing the work that, truth be told, that our schools should be doing. There would be no ABC Youth Futures if the schools were doing all that they were supposed to do. And they get paid, as I like to say, they get a salary with benefits.
Yeah.
And there still has to be outside organizations to pick up the slack. So support those organizations with your dollar, and commit to $10 a month. Could you imagine if 50 people committed to $10 a month, what that is a year's time to an organization like this,
and
some of the other organizations, and they are doing the work that you pay taxes to a school system to do that they're not doing.
Right.
That's all. That's New York talk. We always look at this and saying, why you got your hands in my pocketbook and I can't say anything? If you don't want me to say anything, don't take my tax money and I'll shut up. But that's again, support organization, support her, support Mr. St. Clair. A lot of you may not know, Prairie View has correct me if I'm wrong, produces more Black architects in the Southwest than any other college in the country. Is that correct, Mr. St. Clair?
Let me correct you because we are families.
Correct me.
Prairie View A&M University produces the most African American architects in the country amongst PWIs, predominantly white institutions, and HBCU. Architecture here. We produce the most of them. National.
Now, did you hear that? You hear that? Your child wants to be an architect. An African American student, particularly a male African American student. Prairie View produces them. You want your child to be someplace where they have a proven track record of producing. Okay? Don't let these guidance counselors, college advisors, and things at this school give you information because they don't even know.
Yeah.
True.
They don't even know. And how you gonna tell me and you don't know? Let me school you. And if you looked at the example I showed, the tuition, the cost of attendance, Baylor, Prairie View.
Facts.
Baylor, $70,000 a year.
It looks like we have a question, Ms. Vanessa.
There are people that don't earn $70,000.
Right. Ms. Vanessa, we got a question from one of the viewers. She's asking if you can speak to transfer students when it comes to financial aid.
Absolutely. The process, that financial aid process is the same whether you're going into college, whether you're transferring. And I got another secret. even if you are an old person like me and you decide, I'm gonna go back to school and get my degree, the process is the same.
That's awesome.
Let me repeat, at the undergraduate level. Now, when you're going to grad school or going to get a PhD or something, it's the same, but it's a little different. But at the undergraduate level, the process is the same. It doesn't matter if you're 17 or 70. So for students, you would simply need to apply to whatever college you're looking to transfer to, be accepted, and you would complete that financial aid process the exact same way. Can I put my email address in here in case anybody has any questions?
Yeah, definitely drop it in there.
Please drop it, and I'll just cut and paste it in the normal chat that everybody is looking at, so it'll go across all the screens. But I keep telling them, if you have questions, why you have a person that is an expert in the area, please ask questions and don't be shy. I can't stand it. We'll sit there and be like,
also, if they email me, I will send them my scholarship list. I will also send them, I have an 18-page glossary of financial aid terms. And I give that, and you just keep it as reference. Keep it as reference. But this isn't too important of a process for us to not have a good grasp on it.
Right.
We have to have a grasp. That's as Mr. Haywood, and one of the things I love about Brother Haywood, this is not just his job. This is really his calling. And and like Miss Monique, they really want your kids to get it. They want you to get it. This is not a process that you just turn over and say, well, they're going to tell me what to do. No, this is something, because there are lifelong ramifications, particularly when we're talking about loans, even federal loans. I talk a little bit about private loans. I'm going to say this. I'm saying this. Please stay away from private loans.
Yeah.
Please stay away from private loans.
That's true.
Stay away from private student. They do not have the same protections as federal loans. You cannot put them in deferment generally. You cannot do any of those things. In many cases, you always must have a co-signer. Always, if you're even the student, federal loans, federal direct loans, the student's loan, there is no credit check. But with a private loan, there's always going to be a co-signer. The interest rate could be variable. So if the interest rate could be 3% today and next year it goes up to 7%. Stay away from private student loans. There's enough college choices within the HBCU spectrum that you will be able to find. Stay away. Please stay away from private student loans. Because let me just tell you this. If you got to go broke educationally, I'd rather see you go broke getting your master's degree, your MD, KD, or your PhD, not your undergraduate degree.
No, never.
Right.
You have a question, Ms. Vanessa. You got a question. Somebody is asking for the list for essays writing.
I don't have a list of I don't have a list of essays writing.
Yeah,
I have a list of essays and writing prompts that they use for scholarships.
So that's I was looking up that. That's what she was asking about. Okay. I'm finding mine, but my desktop keeps acting up. So that's something that we need to include. They'll have to reach out to us, I think, Mo, or we'll hit that on the next broadcast, because that's something we need to do this in a part 2, because again, there's so much information, and we've all discussed this, and I experience it daily as I'm here in the metropolitan Houston area, or if I'm in the Dallas, Fort Worth, or if I'm in Atlanta, or if I'm in Los Angeles, I get the same questions. So we definitely cannot talk too much about scholarships and what can be done, because they are out there. But parents, your student, not you. Not you. Your student has to do the work, because when they come to us, you're not going to be there for them.
That's true.
And let me tell you something else, parents. You you do your children a grave disservice. I mean, students have to be guided, but don't do this for them. You can't want this more than they do.
Right.
That's facts.
You can't want it more than they want it. Guide them, assist them, but do not do them. Do not.
I agree.
You're going to do them a grave disservice. Don't do it for them.
I totally agree.
I want to thank you guys. This was great. This was great, and like I said, we covered a lot of ground. I hope I gave enough information.
Yes.
That people can okay. Now I kind of got it. Now I can get started.
Yeah.
So remember, October 1st, Fafsa, October 1st. I don't care if it's going from high school to college, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, October 1st.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh, you got it. I think you got a bunch. Oh, thank you for the presentation. Somebody said thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. It's a family affair, and again, we'll have to do this in a part 2 because it's much more information that we can give out. And as I travel, and I share with Ms. Vanessa and my sister Monique, it's stuff that I would feel remiss if I didn't share it, because I'm out here talking to you guys, students, and when they're asking me these questions, trust me, it hits me like a Mike Tyson hook, because I wonder where these questions come from. But I understand, because again, these schools, and I'm gonna just put it out there, these schools are not checking for our kids. I'm just gonna put it out there.
No,
they're not. And
coast to coast, north, south, east, west.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The same. So I don't care if it's New York, if it's Texas, if it's California, Detroit. It's kind of the same. And parents, and teach your children to be their own biggest advocate as well. Ask questions. There are no dumb questions. There are no, because if somebody, let me tell you something, because these people love to gaslight you. They'll make you think that you're stupid. You're asking a perfectly intelligent question.
Say that again.
And they will sit there and look at you. No, it's because they don't know the answer to the question.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know.
That part.
Everybody here should have some students applying to HB. I don't care if they've got 10 schools on that list. Half of all your schools should be, there's 105 HBCUs. Small, large, and in between.
Mm-hmm.
They will meet your student where there's a school that will meet your student. If your student has the drive and the desire, there is an HBCU that will meet them where they're at, will take them and lovingly press them and turn that lump of coal into a diamond.
You better say that. That's me. They did it for me.
We know about the more well-known HBCUs, and they're in the family, and we love them too. But that may not be the best of environment, or that may not be where your child can be or should be. There are many, many more that one student that may have struggled freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, for whatever the reason, and they get to senior year and they pivot and they're turning that corner. Should that student now kind of, there's schools there's an HBCU that will see that and will take that and they will cultivate that.
That's true.
So
that's so true. Well, Miss Vanessa, I have truly enjoyed you. We got to do this again.
Yeah, there's definitely a part 2. We definitely have to do a part 2 because there's some more information that we need to share.
And I have learned, I'm like, information overload. I learned so much. I'm
always here, available for you, Miss Monique and Mr. Hayward. Y'all know y'all can drop me an email, or I'm here. We're all part of doing this work.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you got so many people that are writing in different platforms. I can't keep up with it. I think she went off for a little bit. Did we lose her?
Did you?
I hope we didn't lose her. Oh no, there she goes.
Okay.
I said, because I know y'all want to wrap up, but again, just thank you for the work that y'all do. Continued success. I will be supportive, always be supportive. And I hope that when things lift up a little bit, I can travel down to Texas to see you guys.
Hey, I can't wait. Well, I mean, I wish you could come next week. We have a college fair here, a HBCU college fair that's going to be really nice. I don't have the
What
flyer.
part of Texas?
In San Antonio.
San Antonio.
They're stepping up.
Look, I feel like, I'm retired now, so I'm going like this. What I could do, and it'll give me a great excuse to get into some warmth because it's going to be cold here next week.
Yes, ma'am. You in New York? I know you cold. I'm cold thinking about it. But Miss Vanessa, I wish you could come, but I do, like Mr. Sinclair said, our work is, is heavy. It's heavy, but we're making strides. I don't know. We're making strides. One of our alums, she's from Hampton. She started a San Antonio HBCU network page, and it's been growing. So we also had an acknowledgement at the Spurs game. So I guess, they said the noisy wheel or squeaky wheel always make noise, and it's going to happen. But I'm not going to be quiet until I see it to the point that it needs to be. So you're going to constantly hear me complain about you're not talking about HBCUs here until I see it everywhere.
Right. But the same thing here. The same thing here. We got, and we just have to just plug away until we, HBCUs should be, when they're here in New York, when they talk about the Ivy Leagues or the selective schools, whatever group of schools you're talking about, HBCUs should be there. Because and don't get me wrong, Ivy Leagues are great, but just so you know, Ivy Leagues only take about less than 6% of everybody that applies to them. Little bit. And as I said, there's a place for everybody. My daughter is an alum, a Clark Atlanta University alum. My son-in-law is a FAMU, Florida A&M University alum. I used to do college tours back in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And so, that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to that point.
Work very hard to expose students to these schools. My daughter applied, when she applied to college, she applied to 11 colleges, got into 10 PWIs and HBCUs. Every HBCU except one, she was accepted. She was waitlisted at one. And all the others, she was accepted to. And she knew since she was like little, and I don't know where she got it from, that she wanted to go to a Black college.
That's what's up.
When she graduated and came back home to New York and went to grad school, there's a certain there, even her classmate, said, you confident, you classroom, you can go back and forth with the professor. They steeped in fact, because that's something that you're given at a HBCU that you may not receive elsewhere.
And that's so true, because in both my master's, my EdS, and my doctorate programs, I'm like, 3.89, and I argue it down. Even in the professional realm at work, I'm like, okay, so what's the
what are we doing here? And that's something that's not even necessarily tangible, but there's something very special about being in a environment where there's people that look like. One of the things I love about HBCUs is that we know that Black people, African Americans, Black people, or people of African ancestry, we are not a monolith. We don't all think the same. We don't all, and
say that.
Sometimes when you're at PWI, they love to put us in compartments.
Put us in a box.
That these narratives. At an HBCU, you can be whatever you are. If you the nerdy Black kid, there's at an HBCU, do your thing. If you the dude with the swag and that, do your thing. it doesn't have anything to do with your level of commitment and intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody there knows that.
That's true.
Where at some other schools they want to put us in compartments. Oh, this type of black person or that type of black person, or no. And that's what's great about HBCUs. We are not all the same. You know, not all black people are Democrats.
That's true too.
That's true.
So you go on some HBCU campuses, they have a Republican society club, and that's okay. And that's okay. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the things I love about our black schools. We can,
and that speaks to our diversity, because that's another topic we'll have on another show. The rampant question I get, well, could you tell me about the diversity? And that's another one that hits me in the head, and I have to take myself back.
They're only regurgitating what's been told to them. They're only regurgitating.
Yeah.
Because they would never know to ask, and then, flip it back on them. Well, tell me what diversity means to you.
And it's funny you say that, Miss Vanessa, because I do, but this is just me being a proud product of an HBCU. And usually when I'm at events, I'm surrounded by PWIs, especially here in Texas. We're one of the states that has a multitude of PWIs, and we're usually at the same events, and so we know each other. The question I have to ask some students is when they ask me, particularly our kids, okay, you're asking me about diversity. You were just at whatever tech, whatever A&M, whatever A&T. Did you ask them about their diversity?
And they downplay them. I mean, just gonna call a spade a spade. You know, I don't know no punches.
Right.
Y'all know I'm very blunt. They don't acknowledge them. I've walked the hallways of schools in this area. They don't have the pennants. They don't have, they don't have the exposure at all. And then when you mention it, or they see me, because I'm faithfully, everybody know me, I'm gonna be me wherever I'm at. And I either wear a Wilberforce shirt, a HBCU shirt, or a black shirt. That's your pick. I'm not gonna dummy down who I am or change who I am or dimmer my light to fit in your box.
Right.
Yeah. So I asked them that.
What does that look like? And see, because the narrative they're told is that diversity is only racial diversity.
Exactly.
They don't even understand about ethnic diversity.
No, they don't understand the question. Period. They don't even understand the question. Period. When they're asking me.
What does that mean? What does that look like? Or what does diversity mean to you? One of the things my daughter used to tell me when she was in college, she used to talk about, now we're from my parents are originally from Lexington, Kentucky, but I was born in New York City. My daughter was born in New York City. So my daughter used to talk about the black elite. If you remember A Different World, the Whitley Gilberts.
Right.
Got it. But women, it was all love too, because these were. But this is not the diversity that is talked about at the high school level with our students.
Right.
These are black folks that have been wealthy for more than 100 years.
That's true.
And it's a whole subculture. And actually, they went to the HBCUs because remember, that's primarily who went. The more middle, okay? And their children, it was absolutely fascinating. So you would have people from all over the country, all over the world, different experiences, all descending, and the commonality that what bound them was they were all of African ancestry, and they understood that. But when you go talk to these college advisors at these schools and they talk about diversity, they want to talk about, well, how many Asians and how many this?
Right.
And I asked them, I said, do you know about the talented 10? And they look at you like, huh?
They don't.
They don't understand it.
The talented 10th was?
They probably don't.
Y'all couldn't sit at that table. I said, I'm just telling you, y'all are not going to sit at their table. So it's about this is what I love about HBCU. So when our kids get into grad school, they go off in their careers. They have seen everybody down to the sub cultures.
That's facts. I tell people all the time. I got.
They're going to say all black people are the same. They think that all black. I don't care where they come from. We all the same. We all think the same way. And I said no. I said no. Not
even a little bit.
You know, it's so funny. Many years ago, I went on a tour of, I'm not going to mention the school, but it's a state school here in New York, one of the big state schools. And this is a school, this is one of the state schools that they always encourage the high achieving minority students to go to here in New York State. Let me info. So while I was on that tour, and I really, you know, pay attention, I saw a group of students, a group of Asian students, and they had signs and things. And I said, let me go over here and see what's going on. So I went over there and I said, you know, what's happening? They were more than glad to tell me that apparently there have been, and this was some years ago, a number of attacks on Asian students in and around the campus. And they felt that the administration hadn't been responsive enough to what was going on. And I said to them, and most of them were from New York City, well, you know, and I said, well, who y'all let know? They said, well, we're trying to get, I said, no. I said, y'all take your behinds back down to the city and you go talk to all of your friends that go to those selective high schools. You let them know, don't y'all come here because this is what's going on. And I'm like, well, I never thought about that. I said, why
not? It was too risky. They didn't want to take that chance. See, one thing that I can say, I learned it well before is to be bold.
You have to be. You have to be.
You know, be bold and be assertive. There's nothing, you know, disrespect and being assertive, they're not synonyms.
No.
Right.
You know,
and if I can add to that, one reason that they're not is because they don't know their history.
That part. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole nother one. Yeah, if you knew where you came from, you knew where you came from, you wouldn't act like that. You'd have a pride about it. So when you ask me about diversity,
and I tell you, know, there was something was posted, I reposted it. They didn't bring slaves to this country. The greatest or the worst human trafficking catastrophe known to mankind was during that time.
The Middle Classes
stole and kidnapped people and made them slaves. They didn't transport slaves. And when you teach and learn your history, some of the things that you see, they'll stop because they know that's out of character. That's not from where I come. And it doesn't, you know, it's so funny. A lot of people don't know that Liberia, the country of Liberia, was founded by freed slaves from this country who, once they were freed, they left.
Wow.
You know, and they don't teach that in school.
No.
Well, and I'm glad
when they talk about Black history, they talk about it in the context of the last maybe 200 years in this country, and that's it.
And that's our next show, though. I don't think you've seen have you seen our flyer for that?
I think so, yeah. Because wait, y'all dealing with the whole critical race theory thing down there, right?
It's about to be hot.
Don't think, let me tell you something. Don't ever get it twisted and think that this is liberal, you know what I'm saying? Let me tell you something. There's a whole, that may not be something we're dealing with per se, in terms of name. But we're kind of dealing with the same thing. In fact, there's some bills that have just passed regarding teaching Black history. And then, you know, you got to determine what are you considering Black history?
Right.
That wasn't, you do not want to miss that. And we got some heavy.
God willing, I will not. And in fact, you know, it would be great because because I want to be able to share it on different platforms with people that are really involved in that movement here.
Yes.
Because unlike many people think, oh, that doesn't happen. We don't have no problems here in New York. I said, you must be stupid.
It's a different name.
Yes, they just call it a different. I said they air hustle you in a different way. You're air hustled in a different way.
It's going to
be tight.
Or do you want to find your back?
You're right.
But that you get, but I absolutely, in fact, please send it to me because I want to share. We have an association of Black educators here in New York.
Oh, that's going to be.
And I would love to send that to them in advance.
Because it's going to be hot. Woo! We can't wait. It's going to be hot.
We got Michael Finkley from the Michael Finkley Show. We got Dr. Joelle. I can't think of her last name right now. She's gonna kill me.
Oh, please send that to me because I really do want to send it to a couple of education organizations here that I think they would love to be involved in hearing that and be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, that conversation. I said I might as well just say I'm sorry to a bunch of people, but it's gonna go down that day because I've been wanting to talk about it forever.
Yeah, but it's about to go down.
Let me tell you. Listen, it shouldn't go down now. It could be whatever you want it to be, but God loves the truth.
He does, and I'm all for it. I don't bite my tongue when it comes to that.
I said you need to be. When somebody trying to stop you from telling the truth, I'm like, well, what are you trying to hide?
Right.
You see, Miss Sparks, we could go all day talking to you.
What is there about me? What is so threatening?
Yeah.
This is why we got to get more of our Northerners down to Prairie View and to Texas Southern and to something. We really Mr. Haywood has done. Let me just tell you, he has become. I deputized him as a New Yorker by proxy. A New York City resident by proxy.
Thank you.
Because when I tell you how hard he reps. And he reps for students, particularly male African American students. He reps hard. And I hope educators are on it. Anybody that's an educator, if you work in the school, especially from New York City, you can reach out to me if you want Mr. Haywood. I'll put you in touch because his delivery, if you are a young Black man, and I'm speaking of the average Black student, because most of us are average anyway. This brother is going to so resonate with your students and have them so excited that they're going to be, well, what I have to do to get into either this HBCU or another.
That's true.
Because in his delivery, and I'm going to tell you something. If you can't talk to 30,000 feet in the air. You got to meet people where they're at. And he knows how, and you can feel the love and care come through. And he cares about your students.
Yes.
And if you want to get in touch with Haywood St. Clair from Prairie View A&M University, largest producer of Black architects in these United States. And I will put you in touch with this brother.
Yes, indeed.
And
it's a family affair.
I hope there's some people from the Eagle Academy on. Eagle Academy, Queens, Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island, and Newark.
Yes.
I want to get with this brother.
Definitely.
I'm just putting it out there because they can't do nothing to me anyway.
Right. But that's okay. You're protected. We're all a family. So that's what we're here to do.
Everybody up here that know me said you want to tread very lightly with her. Because I tell them I'm not scared, never scared. You may not like what I say. You may not like what I say, but you will never be able to say she told a lie.
You're right.
But this brother, if you're in Maryland, I'm very serious. Really connect with Brother Haywood. He does a phenomenal job, not only in presenting the information as it relates to his school, but as it relates to all of the HBCU. And he just does a phenomenal job. I kid you, and I've told you this way before now, Brother Haywood. I said, you make a student excited to want to go to college.
Well, it's an exciting part of life, and we all know that. Yeah, and it gives you something to look forward to. And again, it's a family affair. So somebody put it into me, somebody put it into Mo. So the least I could do to pay it forward is to let my nieces and nephews, our nieces and nephews, know you got someplace to go. And I'm here. I'm that plug to all 100.
Miss Mo is the bomb. And you know, when she said she worked with students from across the country, I said, really? I said, well, let's try to get you in some places. You know, New York City school system is a hard nut to crack. You know, you got to, you got to get yourself. I mean, really, even for those of us that's in the system that know how to navigate it, you know, every now and then we have to cuss them out. I mean, cuss them, not cuss them out. CUSS out.
Right.
You know?
Oh God.
But you know, I remember we did a session and there was a state senator from Oregon, from the state of Oregon, a Black woman who's a state representative that's very, very much interested in HBCUs for the Black and Indigenous American students in the state of Oregon.
Wow.
We've got to kick over all of those rocks. I'll give you her information to reach out.
We'll have to reach out to her.
Yeah,
Mo is awesome at what she does. Mo is awesome at what she does. So yeah, we'll definitely head to Oregon, Mo. We got to pack up the wagon.
But you believe Oregon?
I'll find me something cheap.
Of Oregon. And she's very much interested in providing HBCU information and opportunities for African American and Indigenous Americans in that state.
Let's get it. We got 105 destinations for you. Let's get it.
So, Miss,
I'm on grandma duty now.
Right, go ahead.
I said, okay, I think I need to go pay some attention because I hear them in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I hope they're not cooking.
I don't need my house to blow up. So with that, I'm gonna say good night to everybody. Thank you, Miss Mo, and thank you, Brother Haywood.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. We love you.
Oh my gosh, she has given me so much knowledge in that. I mean, this is probably the longest podcast we've ever had.
Right.
But I didn't want to end it.
Yeah.
But I think our next one will probably be very intense. I'm gonna start advertising. I put the event in the Eventbrite for everybody that can join. Most of our podcasts are live. This one will be live. So come with your questions.
No, it's gonna be live. It's gonna be live.
We are attacking the critical race theory. I can't wait with some guests that have their own platforms and they're highly educated. But this conversation is going to be definitely one to come and watch. I am sorry, Mr. Hayward. I know you like, wait a minute, I still got to drive back. But
you know me and you, we brother and sister. I got you. Ain't no thing. Long as we get this word out.
So good. Yeah. Like the content, the slides, the stuff I didn't even know about. I'm like, goodness, I finally found out what EFC meant. I knew what it meant, but the in-depth meaning. So if you are watching this, please like, share, comment. If you go back through the feed, Ms. Sparks' email address, she said, ask her questions. She will send you out stuff. Next week, I don't think we're going to have a show because we're going to be preparing for this critical race theory. There's going to be the following week with our very, very special guest. But oh my goodness, I just feel like I learned so much on a Saturday, a Super Bowl Saturday.
And we'll have to do this. We'll have to do a sequel because there's still some information we still have to cover. So definitely.
And I love Miss Sparks. She reminds me of like an auntie. I would call her auntie. Sometimes I just text her like, look, what do you know about this? But I think the information was very, very knowledgeable. And I mean, it was just like, I want to just be like, oh, we in 2 hours. Yeah. But we
can't stop that. We can't stop it. It's got to flow.
No, that had to flow. And I know she's on grandma duty, but I truly appreciate her from the bottom of my heart. She sends me messages. She keeps me abreast of things. If you are in the San Antonio area next week, there is going to be a big college fair that you might want to take part in. I don't know all the schools that's listed, but I do know it will be a HBCU experience for you. at Alamo College's Lakeview campus.
Mm-hmm.
I will be posting the flyers continuously because I want people to be in the place, because San Antonio is growing, brother. They really growing. Like, I don't know. It's not growing to where I want it to be, but hey,
We'll get it there. We'll get it there. We'll get it there. We got to chip away. We got to chip away. We'll get it there.
And today, did I tell you what happened to me today? I met a Wilberforce graduate. She seen my license. Well, I can't put that, personally. She seen something on me.
That's what's up.
And it made my whole day. So Tanya Howard, if you are watching, I think that's her name. I hope so. If that's not her name, it's Tanya Teresa something. But whatever, she graduated class of 90, and it made my whole day. We exchanged numbers. I told her to get in with the San Antonio HBCU group, and we talked about memories that only Wilberforce students will know.
Right.
She made my whole day today. So if you have a Valentine, happy Valentine's Day to you.
Valentine's Day.
But most important, before we get out of here, I hope I can do the transition without messing up.
You got it. You got it.
Most people know. So we have to play our, we got to give homage. Even though Anthony don't know, I got both screens up. I'm watching the UNCF thing and I'm doing a live. That means I'm multitasking. No, I'm just playing. So I am going to let those who may need to know about the Common College Act, and then I'm going to let you know about There Is a Better Way. And if you don't see us pop up and say goodbye to you, Mr. St. Clair, do you have any announcements?
Just stay tuned. We got what you need right here. My sister and I, Better Chance of You Futures. Yeah, the kids of 1837. Be on the lookout. Premier Heritage 105 is coming. And we'll see you guys soon.
Right. So after these commercials, we will see you in 2 weeks. Please, please, please be on the lookout. That critical race theory conversation.
It's hot. I can't wait.
Are you interested in attending an historically black college or university? Hello, my name is Robert Mason. I'm president and founder of the Common Black College Application. Our application allows students to apply to over 50 historically black colleges and universities at the same time for only $20. HBCU graduates have been some of the most renowned individuals in their respective fields since the late 1800s. In addition to that, our faculty and staff are truly committed to your success, and they have a vested interest in seeing that you do well. That, coupled with the academic rigor and the fact that you will establish lifelong relationships, are just some of the many benefits of your attending an historically black college or university. So if you're interested in completing the Common Black College app, visit our website at commonblackcollegeapp.com to apply now. Thank you, and get educated.
All right, that was one. We got our other one.
Take another one. Take another one.
Hey everybody, what's really happening? I'm Anthony Brown. Look, I need for you to just join me on my other YouTube page, and you get to see some amazing, great content like this.
Hey everyone, let me tell you about exclusively HBCU. They are more than your typical subscription box service. Their mission is to highlight and collaborate with other HBCU alums and entrepreneurs while providing opportunities and scholarships to current and future HBCU scholars. And did I mention they have a really great week
And the 4 next week. So we'll start those Christmas Eve all the way to December 31st. And then we will be done with our 2020 HBCU Alumni Care campaign. And did you know, since June 1st, how much money be raised? Oh, did you know? You may not have known. And this.
Founder Robert Mason and producer Tia Mache Johnson. This is not just a show, it's an experience. It's a conversation with intention, purpose, and focus. So for the next hour, join us here on HBCU Live.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another edition of HBCU Live. It's not just a show,
it's an experience.
It really is. Hey y'all, what's going on for July 21st day? How's it going?
Hey, people.
Hey, if what you're doing does not bring peace, prosperity, and progress, then you may be doing it wrong. It may be time to reassess your life goes. Then let's walk and talk it out.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood. A neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
And even this. Hey everyone, here's another Inspire Me moment, and today's thought is, you can cut all the flowers, but you cannot keep spring from coming. Now you already know that change is inevitable, and with everything, there will come a time that as you go, you will grow again. Just like that favorite pair of shoes, that car you had to have, that first job you ever got. You didn't just stay there. At some point, you had to grow. The newness in your life is coming. You just need to make room, embrace it, and enjoy this new season of your life. Hey, that's all I got for you today. Be sure to share this message and go out and make today absolutely amazing.
As always, thank you for doing all the social media things such as like, comment, follow, subscribe, and share this message on all your media platforms. Even more, hit the bell notification so you never miss a video or an upload.
Just as elements are essential for optimal physical and professional well-being, the 37 elements that comprise UNCF are each unique and beautifully made, and grounded in rich history that allows our students to grow and develop into their best personal self.
As a first-generation college graduate and a first-generation American, it was extremely important for me to attend a historically Black college and university.
My experience, my education at an HBCU called Morehouse gave me that competitive advantage.
One of the best moments of advice I've ever received was from my mom, who told me to attend Howard University in Washington, D.C. In my career as a filmmaker and now museum curator and co-founder, all of those lifelong relationships that I formed and forged while attending an HBCU were priceless.
Spelman College provided a sense of pride and confidence and accomplishment in me. It gave me a chance to truly understand my history and my place, and I think it has had so much to do with me taking a seat at the table today.
The 37 members of HBCUs that make up UNCF are essential and critical for the education of our students, past, present, and future.
The majority of Black lawyers, doctors, engineers, and professionals from all vocations, they come from HBCUs.
I've been supporting the efforts of the UNCF for decades now. It's been part of my life's mission. And of course, there was that little show I did about a fictitious HBCU called A Different World. The lessons that show taught are real. The legacy that show has built is very real. It's encouraged generations across this country and abroad to attend and seek their best selves at HBCUs.
In a segregated America, when it was illegal for our people to get an education, HBCUs were founded to level the playing field to enable us to provide for our families and our communities.
I support the UNCF's mission as I'm aware of the financial challenges that are faced by our youth in order to have an opportunity to even get a college education.
So if you can, whether the donation is big or small, please help us reach our goal and support UNCF's mission.
Help UNCF celebrate during this Black History Month the legacy and continued role of HBCUs and the students that continue the fight for their own legacies.